All right. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry it took me a few minutes to get started. Miss, I moved to New York about 2 years ago, and I've been teaching, doing a lot of teaching, playing with a few different community orchestras around New York, and I really enjoyed my time here. I went to college for music in violin. And so I'm excited to share with you whether you already play the violin or whether you are just a brand new beginner. I'm excited to share with you some of the things that I know. So even if you're not a beginner and there's some stuff that you already know, you might find one or two things that you didn't know before. So I'm going to grab my violin. So this is my violin. So for those who don't know, you have the violin part, right, of the whole thing. And then you have the bow part. So there's a violin and the bow. So there's actually two parts to the violin. The violin is the one that has the strings on it. You can count how many strings do you see? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 strings. So there's 4 strings on a violin. And now that makes that different than a guitar because guitars have 6 strings. And of course, guitars don't have bows. So there's a few different parts of the violin that we should know before jumping right into it. So besides the strings, we have this thing right here, which is called, well, what does it look like to you guys? I'll give you a hint. This is, my little fingers are like a little person walking over this. This is called the bridge. So it kind of, once you hear the name, it kind of makes sense because it looks like a bridge. And so when we play the violin, we play in between the bridge and this black thing, which is called the fingerboard. Fingerboard. So think finger as in what's on your hands and board as in a plank of wood, right? So between the bridge and the fingerboard is where you will play. Another part of the violin is called the pegs, P-E-G-S. Now, these are really important because they change the sounds of the strings, which we'll talk about. So when you twist the peg one way, the string will go higher. And when you twist the peg another way, the string will go lower. So it's really important that the strings stay at their specific pitch because we have high strings. That's the highest string. And then we have our lowest string right there. So we do want to get a variety of sounds from our violin. So that's why we have different levels of strings that create different pitches. So we have this one, the highest one. Then we have 2 middle ones. And then we have our lowest string. All right, so I'm just going to make sure everything is good. Okay, I'm not sure if I look fuzzy on here because I'm getting word that I might be fuzzy. I don't look fuzzy from my end, but so I'm not sure why. But let me know in the comments if anyone's watching right now if I look too fuzzy because I want you guys to be able to see me. So we have the 4 strings. Now the strings all have names, right? Those who play other instruments, if you play the piano or the guitar, you might know that the keys in the piano, they all have letter names, right? So that's the same thing goes for the guitar. You have letter names for each of your strings. So those things apply also to the violin, except for we only have 4 strings to remember, which is super easy. So our highest string is the E string. So that's E as in elephant or egg or, now I can't think of any other E words. Exciting, all starting with the letter E. So that's the highest string. Then we have the second highest string is A, which is A as in apple or alligator or apricot, anything like that. Then our next string is the D string. So that's D as in donut or dinosaur. Then we have the lowest string, which is called G. So that's G as in gorilla, or what is another word that starts with G? Now that I'm on the spot, I can't think of any G words. There's grouchy, starts with the letter G. So G. So going the other way, we have G. We have, giraffe is another G word. And there's D. D as in donut. I like any food word. So anything like that works for me. A as in apple. And then E. E as in egg roll. So I like to make them about food, or another way to remember them is to make a saying out of it. So we have G, D, A, and E, right? So they kind of all rhyme except for the A. So you can say good for G, donuts for D, R for A, that's A-R-E, R, exciting. So good donuts are exciting. I also think that maybe there's no such thing as a bad donut. All donuts are good, right? So good donuts are exciting, right? Or if you guys have a dog at home, you can also say good for G, dogs for D, always for A, and eat for E. So good dogs always eat. So those are the 4 strings. Now I'm going to play a little game with you guys. And I know I won't be able to hear you, but you're going to be able to tell if you're right after each turn, because I will tell you the answer. And you'll have to know, you'll have to guess which string am I playing. Okay? So you can either keep your eyes open, or if you're really feeling a challenge, you can close your eyes and see if you can still guess the string. So remember that G is the lowest string. D is in the middle, but still towards the bottom. A is also in the middle, and E is at the very top. All right? Okay, so we're going to do just a few. One more time. So for those who still need a hint, it's the lowest string. And that is the G string. So if you guessed G, then you are correct. Okay, so let's do the next one. It's the highest string. Now this string, it is the letter that starts the word egg. So if you guessed the E string, then you are correct. That is the E string. Let's do a little bit more challenging one. This one's a little bit tricky. But my hint will give it away. It's the first letter of the alphabet, which is A. Very good. That is A. All right. Okay, then we're going to do the last one. If you guys don't remember what the last one is, sounds like this. Okay, it's not the lowest one. It's the second to lowest one. So it's in the middle. And it's the same letter that begins the word donut. So that's D, the D string. So I am sure that you got at least one or two of those right. And if not, you can always go back and replay the game by rewinding. So next, we're going to talk about how to hold the violin. All right. So with pianos, now some pianists might agree with me, there isn't a whole lot of changing your body posture, or they might disagree with me. I'm sorry. There's not a whole lot of changing your body posture for playing the piano besides sitting, make sure you have good posture. But with the violin, we do need to hold our arms differently than we do when we're just sitting down or standing up regularly. So when we're standing and we're playing, it'll be hard to see my feet, but you want your feet to be spread apart. Now that's because when you're playing, you don't want to lose your balance, right? So think about a tree. Trees that are really skinny, they are easily blown over in thunderstorms, rain and thunderstorms. Trees that have bigger trunks, right? They're more sturdy. They're going to be more solid. They're not going to blow too much in the wind. They're not going to get blown over during a thunderstorm. And so you want to be that big trunked tree. So your feet are going to be spread apart. Now, they're not going to be too far apart because then you're getting crazy. So you want maybe your feet just underneath your shoulders. Okay? Now, a lot of the times when you're playing the violin, you'll have a device on it to make it easier to go from your shoulder to your chin. Because the violin by itself is a little bit thin. So if you look, if I hold it like this, it's just a little bit awkward and uncomfortable. So a lot of the times people have a sponge that they put at the bottom of their violin like this. But when you grow up into a full-size human, you will get a shoulder rest. And a lot of kids also use shoulder rests. So it really is up to preference. This is called a shoulder rest because it goes on your shoulder. And it's resting on your shoulder. So it just goes, it has these little feet. And it's just going around my violin like this. And so when I hold the violin, I'm holding it by its neck. This is called the neck. It looks just like a giraffe neck, like a long and skinny neck. So we call this the neck. So if I get out of my case like this, I hold it like this, and then I bring it around. Now, this is called the chin rest. Now, why do we think it would be called the chin rest? Because it goes underneath your chin. Now, it's not this part of your chin, right? It's this part of your chin. Because we don't want to play the violin like this. That's a big, big no-no, is to play the violin like this, because then you don't have any room for your bow to go, right? So we want it to go right underneath the pointiest part of your jaw. So if you see where under my ear, there's this little pointy part. So it's really under the side part. So I'm going to rest the side of my chin on the chin rest. All right? Now, when you first start playing it, the violin, and you're learning how to hold it, you're going to put your hand on this part of the violin. You're not going to try to hold out here yet. You're just going to try to hold right here. Now, if this is the neck of the violin, then these are the shoulders, right? So you can call it the shoulder because it looks just like your shoulders. So I'm putting that right underneath my chin. It's very important at this point not to point your violin down, right? Because then we look very sad when we're playing. So we want to hold it straight across. So in a horizontal line or a flat line, like this. If you see, my fingerboard and the end of my violin is pointing out straight across. It's not pointing down, and it's also not pointing up, right? because in that case, it would be also very hard to control my bow. And it's also uncomfortable. And we don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to be the most comfortable the entire time that we're playing the violin. So straight across, right here, and we're holding it like this. Now, it might be hard to tell through the video, but my violin is going on my left side of my body. So for those who don't know, the difference between right and left, the best and quickest trick I know, if you're not sure, is to make 2 L's with your hands. And the L that makes the hand that makes the L facing the correct way, that being the L facing the correct way. So one of them is backwards and one of them is forwards. Okay? So the one that is facing forwards, the correct way, is the left hand. So you can find it yourself, and it doesn't matter which way you're facing. If you just look at your thumbs, at your hands, and you see one of the L's looks correct from how you learned your alphabet, that's your left hand. And the violin always goes on the left side, even if you're left-handed or right-handed, it doesn't matter. It's always going to go on your left shoulder. And your bow is always going to go in your right hand. So even if you don't have a violin with you at home, you can practice the posture of holding a violin. So by standing with your feet shoulder width apart, if you want to take it to the next level, you can stick your left foot, again, we're using our right and our left foot, that would be on this side, slightly in front of your right foot. And this way you have even more balance, because you're not going to fall either direction. You're not going to fall back or forward. You're not going to fall left or to the side. That was right, so don't get confused. So you're holding your violin like this, and your arm, you see this arm right here, it is not, some people might do this because they're afraid of dropping their violin, and we don't want to do that either. Not only is it very uncomfortable, it's not good for playing the violin, because it's going to make your whole side of your body very tense, and you're going to need this arm and this hand for putting your fingers down and playing notes. So make sure that even if you're holding it right here on the violin, that you have a little bit of space between your arm and your body. So now I thought that we would take a quick break and play a game of listening. Now, this game is designed to help you train your ear, which, what do we think training our ear means? It means developing a way that we can recognize sounds in a better and faster way. So with the violin, it's actually very useful to do a lot of ear training, to train your ears. Just like you might train at the gym, they call it weight training. If you're lifting weights, you're making those muscles stronger by lifting weights, whether you're doing the dumbbells with the arms or you're squatting with your legs. Those are to make your muscles stronger. The same thing goes for your ears, right? While it may not be your physical ears, like your ears are not going to get bigger and bigger and bigger the more that you do ear training, but your brain is going to recognize the sounds that your ears hear way faster and more accurately. So that all being said, a lot of the songs that we know, that we've grown up with, have words to them. Now, some would say that the words make the songs, but I would disagree. And a lot of musicians would disagree, because it's the notes that actually make the melody. The melody is the actual order of sounds that make something sound like a song. So a melody can go like this. So you recognize that that might be a familiar tune like Twinkle Twinkle, even though I wasn't singing the words. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few different songs and see if you can guess which songs they are. So here is number 1. Does anyone know? Some of you might get it really quickly. I'm going to do it one more time for those who are still not sure. All right, so if you don't know yet, that was the Itsy Bitsy Spider, which some of you might have heard a long time ago when you were really little, and some of you are still hearing that song quite often. Either way, it's something that we've heard a lot, and so we're going to recognize that, even though the words to the songs are not there. We can play all of those songs on the violin. So the next song that I'm going to do, well, I'm not going to tell you what it is this song. Does anyone know? Let's play it one more time. Very, very good. So that was Jingle Bells. Even if you guys don't celebrate Christmas, it's all around the town during the holidays is that song. So I hope that you guys could recognize it and guess it. Here is the next one. That one was kind of short, so it might be hard to recognize. We're going to play it again. That one is The Wheels on the Bus. The wheels on the bus go round and round. So hopefully you guys recognize that one. I'm going to do one more for the game, which is a song. I'll give you a hint already. It's from a Disney movie, and it came out semi-recently. So. That's one of my favorite songs. And I'm going to tell you what it is after one more time. So that was Let It Go from Frozen, the song that Elsa sings. So I love to play that one. And everyone usually knows it. So it's a good one to start off with. I'm realizing I did not tell you about, what is this thing called again? It's called the bow. So we spell that B-O-W, bow. So just spelled just like the bow that goes in your hair, or a bow tie. So this is the bow. Now it looks kind of like just a stick, and it has this little contraption on the end and then some hair-like stuff across it. Now traditionally, the bow is made with horsehair. So the hair that comes from horses, I'm not sure if it was from their mane or their tail, but they would just snip, 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 just like your head hair, does not hurt. And they would use that hair to make bows. So I'm really not quite sure what it's made out of now. It might depend on the actual bow, but this part of the bow is either made out of wood. It can be special mixtures of things with fancy words that I won't bore you with, but a lot of the time they are just regular wood. And we have the top of the bow, which we call the tip, and we have the bottom of the bow, which we call the frog ribbit. The frog. So this is the frog. I don't really know why it's called the frog. And this is the tip. Now, when you take your bow out of your violin case, it will probably look something more like this, where the hair is much closer to the stick. Now, this means that the hairs are loose. When the hairs are loose, it is not ready to be played. In order to get the bow ready to play, or to use it for playing the violin, is you have to take this twisty thing at the end of your bow, and you have to tighten it. So for the bow, that's twisting it away from you, like this. Now, some people can't quite get it. So if that's the case, if your fingers are not used to it and it's not moving for you, try asking someone else and see if they can do it. You want to tighten it until the hairs are separated from the stick, but they're not too tight. If the hairs were too tight, it would look like two straight lines. Okay, this is, your hair's in a straight line, but the stick of the bow still has a curve to it. If you're tightening it too much, it's going to make the bow tired. So we don't want to do that. And we don't want to have to get the bow re-haired sooner than we have to. So we want to take care of it while we have these hairs on it. And what I mean by re-hair is that periodically, meaning every so often, you need to take your bow into the violin shop and have them replace the hairs on your bow. So that's just what a re-hair means. Another thing about the bow is there is something that we need to put on it called rosin. And I'm going to get my rosin out to show you. Okay, so rosin is, if you guys have ever touched a tree and you felt the side of it and sometimes it's sticky, a lot of the times that's some part of the inside of the tree called sap, and it's kind of leaking out of the tree. That's called sap, and that is basically what rosin is made of, except for it's not sticky anymore. It's hardened into kind of a rock type thing. Now mine, this end part is not part of the actual rosin. It's just part of holding it. So you take this rock and you use it and you put it on the hairs. Now, why do we do that to the bow? The reason is without the rosin, we're not going to get an audible, meaning we're not going to get a sound that we can hear out of the violin if you're getting a new bow. And even if you're not getting a new bow, if there hasn't been rosin in a long time, you're going to get a very whispery sound, which we don't want. So I wish I could show you. You know, I have another bow. I'm thinking maybe I can show you what it sounds like to not have enough rosin. See, this one is loose. So I need to tighten it like this. And I'm not sure what it will sound like because I actually haven't used this bow in a while. Now it's not completely silent, but you can tell that it's kind of weak sounding. You hear some kind of gaps in the sound. It'll, if I play harder, it works, but we don't want to have to do that all the time. So hopefully you could kind of hear a difference in the sound with this bow, which I don't use very often, so I don't put rosin on it very often. Now I'll show you this sound. All right. Then I'll show you the next bow that I put rosin on because I use it more regularly. Now we're getting a meatier and more bold, heavier, yeah, we're playing the violin kind of sound. So that's what we want. Now, as far as how often you need to put rosin on your bow, it really depends how often you're playing, and whenever you feel like the sound from your bow is not what you want it to be. Or sometimes if you don't have enough rosin on your bow will be slipping all around your violin like this. And you don't want that. So we want to keep it in the green zone. Oops. We want to keep it in this green zone here. You can call it the green zone, the go zone, the good zone, whatever kind of zone you want to call it. It's the good. You want to keep it here. Here is the red zone. Red light, stop. Now you can technically play and make a sound on it. Doesn't sound that great, right? So if you're going in between the green zone and the red zone a lot, that's going to be a mix of good and bad sounds. So, right? This sounds screechy and not quite very good. So that's why we stay in the green zone and why we put rosin on our bow. So the next thing we're going to learn is about plucking. So when you first start to play the violin, your teacher is probably not going to start you off with the bow on the very first lesson. That's because you have to learn how to hold a violin. You have to learn about all the parts of it, the stance, the posture, and it might look easy here, but it actually takes just a little while to get used to it. So for those reasons, you might not be using your bow on the first lesson. What your teacher might have you do instead is pluck the strings with your finger. Now, I'll teach you a fancy Italian word, which is called pizzicato. And it sounds kind of like pizza. And I'm pretty sure it's spelled pizza and then cato. So like the food, the pizza. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's spelled pizza and then C-A-T-T-O. So pizzicato, you don't really say it like pizza, like the food, but you say pizzicato is basically just plucking the strings. So if you're holding it the way we talked about, you take your bow hand, which is your right hand, and you'll put your thumb on the edge of the fingerboard like this. Then you'll take your pointer finger and you will pluck like this. Now, when you pluck, you want to make sure that you're grabbing the string from underneath. So it's not, but some people take that and they do it very rough. You don't want to go, I'm not going to really do it because I don't want to hurt my violin, but you don't want to do too much. You need less pressure and less effort than you think. So think of grabbing maybe the side of the string. So if you're getting a sound like this, that's probably not loud enough. You might need to pluck just a little bit harder. But if you pluck too hard, you're going to hurt your string. So you have to really, but it's kind of like just going like this, right? You grab the string and you let go and you create that sound. So we do this so that we can get used to playing songs and also maybe in a little bit use these fingers, which you also will typically not do on your first lesson because you have a lot of things to learn and you should learn things one at a time. And the key to playing the violin and with any instrument is to have patience and just to wait before you move on, because you want to make sure that you're getting all your building blocks correctly and you're comfortable with those. So we're going to pluck today. We're going to pluck a song which I call the AEA song. So you're going to learn your first song today. And this AEA song only involves 2 strings. Can you guys guess what those are? That would be the A string and the E string. So the top 2 strings, if you remember, those 2 strings right there, that was not the song, by the way, but you'll be using those 2 strings, and it's going to be really simple. So here's how the first line of the song goes. So I have my thumb on my fingerboard. I'm going to go A, E, A. So that's A, E, A. So just 3 notes, and the first note is A, and the last note is A. The E is in the middle. So that is the first line. Now, if you want to jazz it up, you can stomp after that. So you can go A, E, A, stomp. I stomped a little bit too hard. You have to make sure that there are no downstairs neighbors or anything like that so that you're not disturbing anyone. But if you want to make it a little bit extra fun, you can stomp. Now, the second line is really easy because it's exactly the same as the first line, which is A, E, A, stomp. So those 2 lines together goes like this. A, E, A, stomp. A, E, A, stomp. So the exact same thing happens 2 times. So the next line of the song, which is actually the only line that is different from the others, is this line, which involves A, E, E. So instead of moving back and forth, you play 2 and then 2 E's. E, E. So 2 A's, then 2 E's. So it sounds like this. All right. So that's the third line. So we're going to try that again. It goes like this. Or A, E, E. Okay, now we're on to the last line of the song, which is You guessed it, the same exact line as the first and second lines, which is A, E, A, stomp. So we're going to play, I'm going to play all of it for you, and then we'll try it together. So it goes like this. That's the whole song. So now let's do it together. So I'll go slowly. Okay. We're going to go A, E, A, stomp. A, E, A, stomp. A, E, E, A, E, A, stomp. So remember, the first two lines are the same, the third line is different, and the last line is the same as the first two. So let's do that one more time. Again, we've got our posture, we're sitting up straight, and another thing is when we're holding the violin, we want our head to be straight up. We don't want to be sleeping. We don't want to be sleeping, so we want our head to be straight up and awake. We're not sleeping the other direction either. We're not going this way. Our head, the crown of our head, which is the very tip top, is pointed towards the ceiling. And our violin's not pointed down, it's pointed straight across. So here's the AEA song. We're going to do it together. A, E, A, stomp. A, E, A, stomp. A, E, E, A, E, A, stomp. Very, very good. Woo! That was a good one. So, if you have your violin, let's put it down. And we're going to talk now about the bow hold. Oops. We're going to talk about the bow hold. Now, believe it or not, there is a special way that we need to hold the bow. The reason for that is if we hold the bow any way we want to, like say you hold it like this, it's very hard to actually get to the top of the bow and to have a straight bow. See, here's my air violin because I just put it down. I try to play like this. Immediately, the top of the bow, the tip, goes this way. If I'm holding the bow the correct way, which is like this, I'm able to have a straight bow, and I'm able to control it. And I'm able to go all the way to the tip. So from the frog, remember, to the tip. So the bow hold is a little tricky. So it takes most people a few times to really get the hang of it. But anyone and everyone can do it. So what you can do is you can make a C, the letter C, with your right hand, like this. So make sure it's your right hand and not your violin hand. So your right hand, make a C. You're going to take that C and you're going to place it around the frog. So you're going to take the thumb and you're putting it at the bottom of this rectangle with the circle, like this. Then you're going to take your middle two fingers, like this, with your thumb at the bottom, and you're going to put them over here, right on top of that circle. They're not going to be on top of the stick. They're going to be like this. So over the stick. It's almost touching your thumb, not quite touching it. Now, the next part is this finger just kind of hangs out and lays down. That finger is taking a nap. but it's not completely useless because we use it for balance. Now, the last and actually the most important finger is the pinky. Now, the pinky is the most important because it holds the bow up and enables us to control the bow. But the reason why it's very tricky is because we can't put it down straight. We have to put it down in a curve like this. So the tip of the pinky, if you can see, the tip of the pinky is on the top of the stick. And my pinky itself is curved like a rainbow or a tunnel. So it's like this. Now, this is why it is important not to have nails that are too long. One of the reasons, because you also need to play with this hand and have your fingers on the strings. But it's also important that your fingernails are not too long in your bow hand, because then it'll be very hard to hold the bow correctly, especially the pinky. So it's like this. So if we shake out our hand, put the bow down, remember to grab it with the right hand. Put the thumb on the bottom of the frog like this. Put your middle two fingers on the other side by the circle. Then you're going to rest your first finger, taking a nap. And then your pinky is reporting for duty like this in its curved position. Another very important thing about the bow hold is that your thumb needs to be slightly bent, just a little bit. So because we just don't want it very straight, because then we run into the same problem that we ran into when we were holding our violin or our bows like this, which is we don't have anywhere for our bow to go. It's going to be very hard for it to be straight, and it'd be very hard for us to get all the way to the tip. So that's the same thing goes on a smaller level for the thumb. If it's too straight like this, it's going to be very also uncomfortable at the top of our arm. So we want to make sure that it's bent like this. And that way, you can play. So you can hear the difference from that, and if I'm gripping it like a fist, firstly, I didn't even get to the top half of my bow, and when I did approach it, it sounded pretty scratchy. So that's why holding the bow is actually really important, and it affects how the violin sounds. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the other hand, which is the hand that we use to put our fingers down and make new notes. Because we do have those 4 strings. But what happens when we put a finger down on one of the strings? Let's go with A. I have A. Now I'm going to put one finger down on the A string. Does that sound higher or lower? Let's think about it. Let's do it again. It sounds higher to me. So how much higher though? It only really sounds one step higher. So if I'm playing A as an open string, so when we are playing with no fingers on the string, just the string itself, we call that an open string. If I play an open string, and then I play a first finger, that next note, that first finger note is a B, because it's the next letter in the alphabet, and that is the next note in the scale, in the order of how the notes go. So we have A, no fingers, B, one finger. What would be for 2 fingers? What comes after B in the alphabet? C. That's exactly right. C. And then D for 3 be fingers. And then next we have our open E. E. What comes after E? What do you guys think? Think of the alphabet. It's going to be an F because F comes after E. What comes after F? What comes after F? G. G. And third finger, we're not on the E string. Third finger on E. Now this part is tricky because even though H comes after G in the alphabet, we don't have an H note in the musical alphabet. The musical alphabet only goes from A to G. And then after G, it repeats over again. So it starts back at A. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So it might be hard to hear me while I was playing. So maybe I'll pluck it. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Back to A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C. And then on and on and on and on. Until forever and ever and ever. But it will repeat the same letters. So after G, our next note is, that was G. And this is A. All right. So we don't have time to quite learn all of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but we can probably learn the beginning. Or if you're not ready to play it, we can at least learn how the song goes and is organized. So I'll play the song for you one time so you can listen to it. All right, so we're just going to learn the beginning of the song. Another fun fact about that song is that is the same melody or the same tune as the ABC song. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So it's the exact same notes, even though those songs have different words. So the first few notes we have in Twinkle Twinkle are, let's do plucking. You can play any song, either plucking or with the bow. If it's too hard for you to use the bow, sometimes it's a better idea to just pluck. So we have A, so that's two A's, two open A's because we have no fingers. A, E, E. Now next we have a first finger on the E string. Now we want to make sure when we put a finger down that our finger is on the tip of our finger, but it's not quite on the nail, it's on the meaty, it's hard to show you. It's on the meaty part of the finger, like right here. Excuse me, so if you put your finger down flat, it's going to sound a little bit different and not really what you want. It rings a lot more when you're playing on the tip of your finger. Now you might be wondering, how do I know where to put my finger? Your teacher will put tapes on your violin to let you know exactly where each of the notes are. Once, it's kind of like training wheels for when you're learning how to ride a bike. So when you learn how to ride a bike, you practice with the training wheels for a long time until you don't need them anymore. The same thing goes with the violin. After a while, you'll get so used to putting your fingers in those spots that you won't really need them. So I don't have mine on. So it's very hard to tell from your perspective where I'm putting my fingers, but I can hear what the right note is, and that's why ear training is really important. So we have A, E, F, E. So that's the twinkle, twinkle, little star. Okay, now what comes next? It goes like this. How I wonder what you are. So what you're going to do, so you have, the notes are D, D, C, C, B, B, A. So in terms of fingers, that's going to be 3 fingers. 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, A. Now we'll go over that again, but I just want to remind everybody that when you're playing here, your thumb is on the other side of the neck, like this. Now you're not going to bend it back like this, and you're not going to put it over the fingerboard like this. It's going to be exactly in line with the top. You see right here? Exactly in line with the top. And it's going to be straight up, so it's not going to be bent like this or like this. Our wrist is going to be in a straight line with our arm. That makes it a lot easier for us to play. So we have 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, A. So that's the how I wonder what you are. That's that part. So like this. How I wonder what you are. So the notes themselves are D, D, C, C, B, B, A. Very good. So now we're going to do it all together. I'll say the letters out loud. A, E, F, E, D, D, C, B, B, A. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. So let's do that again. This time I will say the words. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Now I'm going to do it saying the strings and finger numbers. So it'll make more sense when I do it. It'll go like this. A, E, 1, 1, E. 3, oh, excuse me, I messed up. 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, A. Now with the bow, it'll sound like this. All right. I hope that you guys got something out of this violin class and that it made you interested in wanting to learn how to play the violin. My name is Rachel, and I'm so excited that I was able to share my knowledge with you guys, and I hope that you guys start playing music soon. Bye.